First of all, my name is Raul Sanchez-Lopez, and I'm a researcher. I live here in Copenhagen. And in this session, we are going to have a webinar. It will be me talking about systematic reviews and artificial intelligence. What do you mean by systematic? So there are literature reviews in different ways. We can do a literature review just to get some knowledge or to analyze a point of view, to get an overview, or we can do something a bit more evaluative. So something more like a critical review or a scoping review, where we can summarize the extent of a topic, how much literature there is about that topic, right? Everything depends on a search strategy. If we have a wide search, we will find a lot of papers, but we most likely won't find something specific and maybe not many things about the same topic. If we do a narrow search, we will only focus in something very small. Maybe we are missing some parts of the literature that are facing that problem or that research question from a different point of view. For example, in my field, that is the field of audiology, there are many aspects that are related to public health, but also about technology and signal processing when we think about cochlear implants. We can look at the problem of the hearing loss and audiology services from different perspectives. Systematic reviews are a bit different because our goal is to do a literature review in a very systematic way and document all the process. If we look at some resources, we can see that there are many short names of what is a literature review. For example, if we have quantitative data, we can take the same primary outcome and compare different studies. If we have qualitative data, we can also do some sort of analysis. But there are also some sort of small literature reviews about the state of the art or a rapid review. But right now, I'm going to talk about mainly what is a systematic review and why it is important. So a systematic review is important and is interesting because it has a specific research question. And usually when we look into a literature review, we see something like what you can see on your right. So we see what string we are using to search the literature, and then we are doing some steps. We are doing screening, we are choosing some specific sources, and then is when we are doing this deep literature review of this subset of scientific papers to answer this research question. With the meta-analysis, for people like me, that I come from engineering, is very clear. We are going to look into the data, not the papers, but the data of these papers, and we are going to do the analysis again to find what can we learn with everything together. And this is very important from the point of view of healthcare. So when we have new interventions, we need to have enough evidence and solid evidence to make recommendations. So before the recommendations, there are different levels of evidence, and systematic review of relevant randomized controlled trials is in the level 1. Then there is a level 2 and level 3. In all of them, we are using this type of reviews. And with this, then we can have recommendations for the policymakers about some interventions or others. If we want to substitute, for example, one type of intervention with another one, especially in the public sector, we need this evidence, and it cannot be evidence from one paper, because even if something is statistically significant, it can be because of coincidence. It can be because in this specific sample we have this result, but we cannot generalize to the rest of the population. So the goal of systematic review in healthcare is to evaluate intervention and also to provide a framework where the readers can understand the rationale, the methods, and the findings in the most clear and comprehensive way. The pros is that we can minimize the bias and take reliable decisions afterwards. But the disadvantages of doing a systematic review is that it's very time consuming and resource intensive. So doing a literature review, we can have many people involved if we want to do it very deep and very well. And there are many tasks about searching in databases, finding other type of resources, and then screening, reading the papers, discussing about the results. So at the end, it can be like 1 year, 2 years of work of a team of 5, 6 people. So that's why we can think about we can automatize some of this work. And then I'm gonna open another poll, and in this one, I'm gonna ask you, how do you think we can automatize? And this is something that I will not give you the results today, but we will share it after the webinar. There is no right or wrong answer. So I'm gonna close the poll now. If someone is about to answer, you can still do it. Perfect. Great. Let's continue. Oh, here. This framework for many, this framework is based on a preferred way of reporting all of these results, the way that we do the systematic review. As I said before, this is to enhance transparency and clarity, right? And Prisma, I have a Prisma on the slide, but it's not because of that. It's because it's preferred reporting items for systematic review and meta-analysis. And this Prisma started at the end of the 2000s, I think 2007, and it has had many extensions. Now there are also some recommendations that I don't know if they are in the umbrella of Prisma for also scoping reviews and other type of literature for reporting medical findings. And even if this is for mainly for medical findings, Prisma is used in other types of other healthcare interventions like psychology, also education and social sciences. And basically, it states a way of search, screen, and then extract the data and report all the findings of the literature review. Okay? Because it's very resource intensive and time consuming, there are some softwares that are dedicated to do this, to have all the search, to have all the screening and everything in the same place. Because maybe someone might think, we can use Zotero or we can use Mendeley. So we search, we put this in a folder, but if we are going to do extensive annotations and we are going to talk about hundreds of recordings, then it becomes a very tedious work. So now we reach the last part of my presentation, and I have another question for you. Here it is. So artificial intelligence for research is something that is becoming more and more interesting, but probably you have heard of some tools that are also for a broader audience, for everybody. So I'm just asking if you have heard of any of these. Okay. So no alarms and no surprises. Everybody knows ChatGPT. Almost everybody knows Gemini. Gemini is the ChatGPT of Google. So is the GPT comes from a generative pre-trained transformer. So it's the same technology, but trained by Google. Perplexity is very useful for asking questions. I will show you later something. And then both Consensus and Elicit are for research, are specific for research, but based also in the same technology. Thank you. I will continue then. So AI is for writing. Sorry. what I said didn't make sense. The AI for writing in academic papers is permitted, but it needs to be transparent. This is the headlines and why I'm saying this. So you can see here on the right part that Cochrane has a statement and also some policies about AI, but not only Cochrane. In the past months, many journals from Science, Nature, Springer, Taylor and Francis, they have included in the author instructions some guidelines of how to use AI. And basically, it's these three steps or these 3 points. One is AI cannot be credited as an author. The second is that the author is responsible of how you are using AI and how the interpretation of the results is and if it's ethical or not. And what you have to do always is to be transparent. The way you use it for proofreading. Just in the part of acknowledgements, you have to detail this. You are using it for making some graphs, for example, not graphs with data, but graphs to explain some concept, some, for example, flow diagram. Then you just say it. In fact, there are some tools for research that they are including AI right now. The focus is on enhancing, and I wanted this to be an animation, but didn't work. The focus is on enhancing, not in replacing. The human effort and the human intelligence should still be in the academic papers. And we say AI, but what we mean is actually generative AI. There has been AI since the 70s of the previous century. And all the machine learning that we have been in the past years talking about and predictions, that's also AI. But this is another type of AI. And it's interesting because of this rocket that I showed, because having a good large language model, we can look into the literature in a better way. We can find patterns, we can understand, summarize, we can generate a different version of the paper that is more for a layman, for the broader audience or for other type of audience. Then there is the retrieval augmented generation. In this case, we provide sources and then the AI is going to do the same with a large language model. And then we have agents and multi-agents that what they do is they do actions, they do tasks. They make use of RAG and LLMs to make possible that, for example, we create a flow diagram. Just writing, I want a flow diagram of this. And then we can create an image. Or look into all these references and I want to answer this question. And then it's going to combine, it's going to understand what you want, and it's going to do the algorithms that can provide the better answer. There is a boom right now. In research, I have found these tools, but there are many more. These are the most famous at the moment, and I'm gonna go through them and what they basically do. This diagram, I try to depict what the agents and this type of softwares do, but maybe it's a bit confusing. Just think that the LLM is in the middle, and we have different type of ways to communicate. And the main thing is that we use the capabilities of the memory of a machine instead of a human. We cannot remember all the papers, but the machine can. So there are different ways of using AI. One, for example, Semantic Scholar. It has been for many years a search engine for scientific literature, and slowly is going into this too long, didn't read philosophy. So it's creating some sort of summaries in few lines about what it is. It's not only the abstract. We have now this other resource to know if the paper is interesting for us. Then they can answer questions. And I mentioned before Perplexity, and consensus is very similar. As you can see, even the user interface is very similar. We ask a question: what is the effectiveness of cognitive behavioral therapy for treating tinnitus? And it's going to give us an answer, and it's going to give us all the numbers are references. So we can go to different papers or to different websites to go in depth in the answers. Just for you to know, some of these AIs are getting quite some funding. So I think they are going to stay around for quite some time. Then there is other way to use, or other philosophy of using AI is to create summaries of some topics and then have a list of all the references and have a sort of a structured way of retrieve information. For example, in this SciSpace, we can have some insights, some conclusions for a list of references. That is going to make our work, especially for a systematic review or for a literature review, way easier, because we want to check if they are using similar methods. Then we can look into the methods alone and go through all of this. And Elicit is also getting quite some funding. This is from September, actually. From September last year, sorry, I didn't see that. And SciSpace comes from another startup for scientific tools. And I think it's going to also be around for a long time, and it's going to develop even more. And there is something in between that is answer this, that this is quite okay. It gives literature review by itself, not an answer, is a bit more developed, and all the papers that you can consult on the right. And the last tool that I want to show, because I think is quite interesting, is Storm. This is from Stanford University. Is fully free, and actually they are using, if we use it, we are helping them to improve their research. And it's basically a roundtable of different type of professionals or different type of researchers talking about a topic. And with this, we just write, for example, here, systematic reviews and artificial intelligence, and we can get a document with a summary of all of this. And also we can go into the roundtable and have the detailed conversation of these different type of profiles that they are having. If we talk about user experience, it would be different personas, no? It would be a journalist, an AI researcher, a professor from the university, and then we gather more perspectives from the same topic. I think that's quite brilliant. But how about Erudita? Erudita, spoiler alert, is basically multi-agent. Now I feel a bit nervous because Antonio and Jose are here, but my understanding is that right now is doing the protocols, but in the future it's going to be a multi-agent that is going to be working together with the researchers. And they say in plural because it's not going to help one researcher, it's going to be kind of part of the team in different stages, right?